In this video, I'm going to give you 12 vegetable crops that are great to start in June. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a bonus that you won't want to miss. Let me know in the comments what your absolute must grow is this summer. It's finally time to plant peppers. You really don't want to plant your peppers until nighttime temperatures are 55 degrees Fahrenheit and above. If you put them out before that, you risk your peppers being stunted, and stunted so bad that they may never recover. Now, there is an argument whether or not you should pinch your pepper plants, and that all depends on where you live. Now, if you have longer than a 4-month growing season, pinch your peppers. All that means is you take a little plant like this and you take out the top couple sets of leaves, throw them out. What's going to happen is it's going to send the hormone that was going into producing a longer, taller plant, and it's going to put it down to where all these leaves join to make little side branches. And what that means is more blooms, which in turn gives you more fruit. The thing about that, though, is that it does push off your first flush of peppers to harvest a few weeks. So if you got more than 4 months, no problem. You're going to get more peppers at each flush. But if you have a shorter growing window than 4 months, you don't want to pinch them back because you can't afford to miss or to lose those few weeks. You also want to remember that if you are in a climate that gets strong sun, so here in Southern California, Texas, Arizona, probably all the way through the south, and you get that strong sun, especially in the afternoon. Peppers love heat, so they like the sun, but they don't want it directly on their fruit. So if at all possible, give them some afternoon sun, maybe some midday afternoon sun. I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to be planting my peppers, and I'm going to be showing you exactly how I'm going to be shading them this year. Because if you don't, and you get that strong sun, you're going to get what I get almost every year, and that is sun scald. Now, last year I planted some corn on the afternoon sun side of my peppers, and that did help a little, but what I realized is even the midday sun is too strong here. So stick around for that video. I'll show you exactly what kind of shade structure I'm building. It's really easy. Another thing you can do with peppers is to plant them in pairs. And when I say pairs, I mean really close pairs. Like, now if you had 2 plants growing out of this one soil block, you could leave them just like that. Or you could plant them this close together. Only in pairs. Planting them in pairs gives them the extra shade for the fruit that they're making. It also gives them some support. They can lean on each other. You do want to stake them, but this helps. But don't plant them all that close together. You can plant the pairs about 15 inches apart. But it basically doubles the amount of fruit you get in the same amount of space. June is a great time to start sowing a second sowing of yellow summer squash. Now, zucchini seems to kind of go throughout the summer, but my yellow squash tends to peter out after a couple of months. And so right now, if you've got yellow squash going, it wouldn't be a bad idea to put in a couple of seeds somewhere else in your garden to pick up the slack when that first batch kind of peters out. So the rule of thumb is once you start getting fruit from your yellow squash, plant some more. All right, my third and fourth choices are pumpkins and melons. They're in the same family as squash, but they like a little more heat to get off to a flying start. So June is a great time to give them that. Now, if you're in the deep south, you probably could have started these a month or 2 ago, but now it's not too late. Get them in the ground, give them lots of nutrients. They like really rich soil, keep the moisture level up, and give them a lot of space. I am actually having an issue with my garden this year. I had some of it taken over by bindweed, and so it is not where I want it to be. And some of the beds were taken over with Bermuda grass down at the bottom. So some of the beds aren't going to be able to be grown in this year. So this is a great place to plant some pumpkins and melons and let them wander over the beds that I can't actually plant in. I actually might plant some pumpkins in the vineyard below the grapevines. I have a Dexter cow, Daisy. She just had a new calf, Clover. If you guys are into seeing animals and all the fun they get up to, I'll leave a link to our second YouTube channel, Little Homestead Big Dreams, down in the video description. But they love pumpkins. Our sheep love pumpkins. We like pumpkins both to eat and to decorate with, so I'm growing all kinds. Most of the seeds I got from Blue Pumpkin Seed Company. Great family-owned company. I'll put a link to them down below. Not sponsored, just love them. June is also a great time to plant winter squash, which I'm realizing right now I did not have as a separate number, so this is just a freebie thrown in. There's a difference between winter and summer squash. Some people get confused. You don't grow winter squash in the winter. You grow all the squash in the summer. But summer squash has a very thin skin, zucchini, yellow squash, where once you pick it, you've only got a few days to use it. Winter squash, on the other hand, has a hard rind, much like a melon, or a pumpkin for sure. And those can be stored for use throughout the winter. That's why they're called winter squash. So this is a great time to start those. You can also, to save space, grow winter squash on a teepee or a trellis or a fence. Most of the squashes aren't that big and they can hang right there, ripen right there on the trellis or the fence, and then you can pick them, but you haven't let them ramble all over your garden to waste space. All right, number 5, technically number 6, are more cucurbits, the same family as all these we've been talking about. That's cucumbers. June is also a great time to grow a second sowing of cucumbers. So if you've already planted cucumbers, and maybe you realized this in the past, they don't last that long. They produce a bunch of fruit and then they start getting sick looking, and they just take way too much trouble to keep healthy looking and productive. And so I just go ahead, and when I've gotten some fruits off of some, go ahead and plant another crop. That way you can pull out the first crop once it starts looking really bad, and you have one ready to go, and then you can plant something else where that first crop was. Now by now your tomato plants might be, well, several different sizes, but they're probably at least in the ground and growing. Cucumbers are great to plant under tomatoes. Number one, it just saves space, right? The tomatoes are kind of up off the ground. I would say by July, a lot of the bottom leaves have turned yellow and I've pulled them off, so there's plenty of space under there. Cucumbers, though, are also allelopathic. And what that means is they keep weed seeds from germinating. So they're kind of a great living mulch that also produces a crop. Their large leaves also shade the ground and keep the moisture in. Again, a great living mulch. Another great companion for tomatoes is basil. And this is a great time to plant basil because basil likes to take off fast in warm weather. Now, the reason basil is a great companion plant for tomatoes, yeah, they're great in the kitchen together. They smell great together when you brush up against them in the garden, but it's that smell of basil and that smell of tomatoes that interests or disinterests the moth that lays the eggs that become the tomato hornworm. The moth finds your tomato plants through smell. Tomatoes have a very distinct scent. So you need to plant something next to your tomatoes that has an even stronger scent, and that is something like basil. So in front of all my tomato plants, I put a big row of basil that, you know, it's basically a basil hedge by July, August. And that smell confuses that moth and they don't lay the eggs. Now I gotta say, I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years and I have not had a tomato hornworm on my tomatoes, except one year I put, just for display purposes, I planted a tomato somewhere else. It did not have basil next to it. And guess which one had the tomato hornworm? That one that was by itself. Now, does this work 100% of the time? Well, it has for me. I'm sure there's going to be a year that it doesn't work 100%, but it is enough for me to never plant tomatoes without basil. All right, 7, 8, and 9 are 3 great Mediterranean herbs. In fact, I've got them over here in my Mediterranean herb garden. Rosemary, oregano, and thyme. Sorry if that made you dizzy. All 3 of these are heat-loving plants. They're from the Mediterranean, and they're gonna start really fast right now. They're also great drought-tolerant plants, so a little drip or a little water just every once in a while is gonna keep them going. They don't require any fertilization. There's basically no pests. I mean, they're so easy to grow. Number 10 is corn. Now, knee-high by July is a term a lot of us have heard before to tell you how tall corn should be by July. So getting them in now, and I guess it depends on whose knees it is, but if we're taking like an average size or average height knee, getting them started now should get us there by some point in July. Corn is wind pollinated, and so you don't want to plant one long row of it. The tassels at the top hold the pollen, and the corn silk are the female portion of the plant that accept the pollen. And that pollen is flittered off of the tassels by wind. And so if it comes off the corn by the wind, it's flowing this way or it's flowing this way. And if you've only got one row and the wind's blowing it this way or this way, nothing's going to happen to this corn here on this stalk, right? Or in the whole row. So what you want to do is grow blocks of it, maybe 4 rows of 4 plants or just a block, so that no matter which way the wind blows, it is pollinating the corn on any of the 4 sides. Number 11 is okra. Now, my family is from the South, and I grew up eating fried okra. And okra is a heat-loving plant from Africa. And right now, even in July, is not too late. In fact, it's the perfect time to start okra seeds. Now, my friend Chad, who has a great YouTube channel, Down Home Backyard Gardening, he's in Texas, and he sent me a bunch of okra seeds that I am looking forward to planting this year. In fact, we're thinking of starting an okra challenge. We're figuring that out. You don't even have to plant that many to get a great harvest. They're heavy producers. They have beautiful flowers. What's not to love? The next one is beans. Beans are one of those plants where the more you pick them, the more they produce. If you stop picking them, they're going to realize they've set their seed and they're done. They stop producing. So the best time to pick beans, in my opinion, is when you can barely see the little bump of the beans inside the pod. If they go any further than that, it's too far for me. They get stringy. I don't want them. Beans like really rich, moist soil, so add a lot of compost in before you plant and keep them moist at all times. All right, that was 12. Now, you've stuck around this far. It's time for a bonus. Now, you've stuck around this far. If you've learned something or got something out of this, or at least were entertained, please give the video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't. Now I want to talk about some companion plants that we can plant in our garden to help our plants, our crops, to produce more and to be more pest and disease free. Now, we've already talked about a couple for tomatoes. We talked about cucumbers, and we talked about basil. I will try kind of address the elephant in the room. Maybe you've tried companion planting over the years and had less than stellar results. I was in the same boat, and then I was asked to write a book about companion planting, and I was like, oh man, I don't like companion planting. It doesn't work. Because a lot of what I had heard were kind of old wives' tales that had just been passed down, and there was never any scientific testing done. People just did it and hoped for the best. When I wrote my book, I wanted to make sure I only put in companion planting strategies that were science-based. So that's what these are going to be. Of course, if you want more companion planting ideas, I have my book. I'll link it down in the video description. But one of the big ones for people is squash bugs, squash vine borers. Don't hate me, but we don't have those here. However, there are companion planting strategies that can work for you. Number 1 is to plant blue Hubbard squash about 15 feet away from whatever squash crop you want to keep. For whatever reason, both squash bugs and squash vine borer prefer blue Hubbard squash over any other type of squash. So plant that over there and they will go to that, and that's your trap crop. You can do whatever you want to them once they're over there, kill them or whatever, but that's going to attract them and not the ones you want to keep and eat. For peppers, one of the biggest problems I have with peppers is leaf miner. Now, if you see tracks all over your leaf, that is leaf miner. There's a little larva in between the outer layers of leaf tunneling its way through there. Now, 1 or 2, it's not going to hurt your plant, but you get a whole mess of them, and that actually diminishes the amount of photosynthesis a plant can do. Sprays are very difficult. If there was an organic spray that worked, they're very difficult to reach them because they're protected by the 2 outer layers of the leaf. So you got to find something that gets into the leaf, and that can be done by a parasitic wasp. Now, these are not wasps that will sting you. They're much smaller. They're completely a different kind of wasp. However, the leaf miner, on the other hand, is going to be sorry. The wasp can actually find the leaf miner inside the leaf and pierce the outer layer of the leaf, pierce the larva, the leaf miner, and lay eggs inside of it. And when those eggs hatch, they eat the leaf miner from the inside out. It's not pretty, but it's effective. Now, how do you get parasitic wasps to come into your garden? Plant some kind of flower that is an umbel flower, and that means it is shaped like an umbrella. Dill, fennel, carrots, let the carrot go to flower. All those types of flowers will attract parasitic wasps to your garden, where they will find the leaf miners and take care of them for you. What about beans and potatoes? Sounds like an odd combination until you understand that each actually repel the major pest of the opposite plant. The Mexican bean beetle is actually repelled by potato plants. And the Colorado potato beetle is actually repelled by bean plants. It's a match made in heaven. Now, no companion planting talk would be complete without mentioning the ladybug. If you have aphids in the garden, and who doesn't, you want to bring in ladybugs and hoverflies. Ladybug larvae can eat up to 250 aphids a day, and so can hoverfly larvae. And it's the larvae of both of these that do most of the pest control. So in addition to the dill and the carrot flower and the fennel, you want to also plant some alyssum, some marigolds, and these are going to attract the hoverfly, and they're going to attract the ladybugs. And if there's aphids there, they're going to stick around, lay their eggs, and have a whole new generation of both of those to come and help take care of your garden. As a bonus, dill and fennel will also attract swallowtail butterflies, who will come and be great pollinators for your vegetables. If you're loving this info and you're growing tomatoes and you want more just about tomatoes, click this video right here for 14 science-based companion planting strategies for tomatoes, and I'll see you guys next time.